I'm going to play today. I'm going to make something that I've been fascinated with since I was a child. If you've seen the movies based on Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, whether the movie is called Christmas Carol or Scrooge or whatever, you've seen Mrs. Cratchit come to the table with a plum pudding after they ate the goose. And since I was a child, I've wondered, what is that? What is that? That plum pudding? How do you make it? What does it taste like? That's what I want to do today. A friend of the website, Nancy, said she was going to make one, and that inspired me. I thought, yeah, I can do this too. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fulfill a request today because a fan of the videos said, do more videos showing us how to use a pressure cooker. And the recipes that I've researched, most of them use a pressure cooker to make the plum pudding. It really cuts down the steaming time. I'm going to base this recipe mostly on one that I found in my Larousse Gastronomique Culinary Encyclopedia. I adjusted it quite a bit because I found that some of the ingredients, if I weighed them and then measured them volumetrically by cups, for example, they didn't match up the way I thought they should. So I adjusted a lot of those. I'm going to use also plums, even though people don't use plums anymore. They use raisins mostly. But this encyclopedia says that plum pudding got its name from the fact that it was originally made with plums. And my Larousse Gastronomique Encyclopedia recipe uses plums. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to make plum pudding. What I have here is 3/4 of a cup, 4.5 ounces by weight, 128 grams of dried pitted plums, otherwise known as prunes. And maybe that's the reason why people don't use them anymore, is because prunes have a reputation of being used for a laxative. I coarsely chopped those. I basically cut each prune into 4 parts. And an interesting way of hydrating this that I thought was they put a tea bag in there and then added boiling water. So they're hydrating the prunes in hot tea. I'm going to set that aside. Okay, next I need 1 cup, 4.5 ounces by weight, 125 grams of minced suet. You can substitute lard for that or even vegetable shortening. If you don't know what suet is, this is suet. S-U-E-T. It's hard animal fat, beef fat. It's hard, it's crumbly. I got this from the butcher at the grocery store. He knew exactly what I wanted. He went into the back where they probably have big sides of beef hanging up, and he just carved some of this off of a piece of beef back there and then sold it to me, charged me 17 cents for this. And this is less than half, or more than half of what I actually got. Let me show you. This is the minced suet, and this is why I have a problem with some of these recipes. 1 cup. Now I know I have 4.5 ounces here because I weighed it. I have exactly 4.5 ounces. This is 1 cup. I still have a lot left over. So that's why for a lot of these recipes I work by weight rather than by volume. I'm using a bowl from my stand mixer because that's where I'm going to be mixing a lot of this stuff. So this is my 4.5 ounces, 125 grams of minced, finely chopped suet. Then I have 3/4 of a cup, or 3 ounces by weight, 85 grams of chopped blanched almonds. 2/3 of a cup each, which is 3.5 ounces, 100 grams of raisins. And currants. Now, 1 cup of all-purpose flour. This is another measurement issue. 4 ounces by weight. Normally, a cup is 5 ounces here in the USA, but 1 cup here, 4 ounces, 110 grams. They probably measured it sifted, by sifting flour into a cup. and then scraping off the extra. You end up with 4 to 4.5 ounces if you do it that way. I'm going to add a generous pinch of salt. And then I have here 1 cup or 7 ounces by weight, 200 grams of castor sugar, which is also known as superfine sugar. The superfine just helps it to dissolve a lot more easily in a mixture. And then 1 cup of dry white breadcrumbs, or otherwise known as panko. 1/4 cup, 1 ounce, 30 grams of chopped candied citrus peel. This is orange peel. And then this is the grated rind, or the grated zest rather, of half a lemon. This lemon came from my neighbor's tree. I always take her lemons because she doesn't use them. And then for spices, I have here 1/2 teaspoon of mixed spice. I'm using a pumpkin pie spice mix. They sell that in the store. And then 1/2 teaspoon of grated nutmeg. And then 1/2 teaspoon of grated cinnamon. And those are my dry ingredients. I can give that a stir and then set this aside to do my wet ingredients. Okay, I have here 4 eggs. These are large eggs. Then what I have here is 4 tablespoons of milk. And I'm going to blend these together. Doesn't take much. Okay. And then I have 4 tablespoons of rum. And blend that. And then what I have to do is make some caramel, or caramelize some sugar. So to caramelize my sugar, I've got here 3/4 of a cup, 150 grams by weight, or 5 ounces of granulated sugar. That's regular granulated sugar, not castor sugar. And then I have 4 tablespoons of water. And as you can hear by the hissing, that's been heating over medium heat. And I'm going to stir this until that sugar dissolves. Stir it gently. I'm not making candy here. I'm just caramelizing the sugar. What will happen is, as this sugar dissolves and the water starts to boil off, it'll get hotter and hotter, and that'll start to brown that sugar syrup. And that's the caramelization. So you can see that that's now dissolved. It's clear. I'm going to reduce my heat to medium-low. And then very gently, I'm going to stand here rather, and stir this until the water boils off and that sugar starts to turn. So there's my caramel. I turned the heat off on this actually a few minutes ago, but it's still bubbling a little bit because that pan is hot. You can see how dark that sugar is now. I have in the meantime been heating to a boil 1 cup, which is 8 fluid ounces, about 250 milliliters of water. This is going to boil up when I add this. Probably fog my camera lens. Now that my camera lens has cleared, I can show you my caramelized sugar. Looks like coffee, it's so dark. All right, I'm ready to start mixing my batter. So here's my bowl of dry ingredients. To this, I want to add my milk and egg mixture, and then my caramelized sugar and water. I let this cool down, by the way. It's still hot, but it's not too hot to touch. So I just didn't want to scramble those eggs. I put my mixing paddle on my stand mixer. The directions say to stir this for 15 minutes. I'm going to do this on low, which would be about, I think, the number 2 setting on my mixer. while my batter was mixing, I prepared a bowl. I don't have a pudding mold, but this will work. It's a stainless steel bowl. It'll be fine. It's roughly the right shape. I buttered it, and then I cut a piece of parchment paper to fit in the bottom down there, buttered it again, and then dusted it really well with some of that super fine sugar. I also drained my plums. I'm going to put that in the bottom. That'll eventually be the top. Kind of arranging that to fill that bottom. Okay. Then, I don't know whether my batter is thin enough, thick enough. I have no idea. I've never made this before. I won't know until I get done steaming it. So I'm going to fill up my bowl here to close to the top. I may not use all of this, but it looks like I will. I cut another piece of parchment paper. The directions said to lay this on top, and then cover with 2 layers of aluminum foil. And then several of the recipes said to tie this foil down with string. So I cut a piece long enough to go around this. Loop this through 3 times to make what they call a surgeon's knot. They said tie it securely. That should do it. Put a second one on there. All right, now I'm ready to start steaming this. So here is my pressure cooker. I have a rack in the bottom to keep the pudding bowl up off the bottom. This is a tight fit, but it does go in there. Just like that. And then I'm going to take this over to the sink and carefully fill this with water. I want to bring the water up to less than halfway up this bowl. I have my water in there. I probably should mention that the stainless steel bowl that I'm using as a mold, that's an 8-cup bowl. Now I'm going to put my lid on there, secure it in place, and move this to the stove. So my pressure cooker now is over medium-high heat. I'm waiting for the steam to start building up inside. This is a Kuhn Racone. It's rather expensive. I think they're up over $200 now. I want to say I spent about $150 for this many years ago when I bought it. The way this works is this center part will start to come up when the steam builds up, and when 2 red lines appear, it'll be at full pressure inside. Then I can move it back to a simmer burner and over a medium-low heat and maintain that pressure. And then this will steam now for 1.5 hours once that comes up to full pressure. My plum pudding has finished cooking, so I took the pan off the heat, the pressure cooker, and I let it depressurize naturally. It takes about 20-25 minutes. Now I'm waiting for the pan to cool down enough so that I can get my fingers in there without burning myself to lift out that bowl. In the meantime, I'm going to be making something called a hard sauce that is supposedly traditionally used or served with plum pudding. So what I've got here is 1/4 pound or 110 grams of whole butter that I softened in the microwave. To this I'm going to add 1 cup or about 7 ounces, 200 grams of sugar. I'm using the last of that super fine sugar that I bought. I'm not going to add any salt to this, but if you're using salt-free butter, you can add a pinch of salt. I'm going to add some vanilla extract. And I know each one of these dropper things is a 1/4 teaspoon. So 4 of these for 1 teaspoon. And there we are. And then finally, 1 ounce or 30 milliliters of rum. Now I want to blend that really well. I don't have an electric mixer, but I do have an electric drill. And I bought this for 5 cents at a charity thrift shop. It works very well. Okay, supposedly you blend that until it's well blended and then light and fluffy. All right, I'm ready to open this. I have no idea what I'm going to find when I get in there. Get the string off. Should I, shouldn't I? Oh, I'm so nervous. There it is. Oh, and it looks like it's set up. I'm going to blot off some of that moisture there that got in. It looks like it's set up. Okay, I'm going to turn that out onto a plate and see what I've got. All right, let's see what it looks like when I turn it out. Hopefully it'll come out there easily enough. Sounds like it. It fell out. There it is. One other point worth mentioning is how to decorate this. Some people put a sprig of holly in the top. I think I'm going to put a few pieces of my candied orange peel on top. Like so. Just something a little bit decorative without being too fancy. All right, photography time. Okay, after all these years, decades, I'm finally going to taste what Mrs. Cratchit served on Christmas Day. Very dense. Very dense. How rich is that going to be, I wonder? And it's healthy for you too, with all that beef suet in there. It's got to be healthy for you. There it is. Got some of my hard sauce here. Put that on there like so. It's such a dark pudding, I decided it needs to be on a white plate. So let's see what this tastes like. All right, let's see what I've got here. After all these years, I'm finally going to taste what Mrs. Cratchit made for Christmas Day. Ooh, that's definitely got its own flavor. It is rich. You can taste the rum. It's got a lot of texture to it. It's a little bit spicy from the nutmeg and the cinnamon and everything. All right, that is really very good. So excuse me, I'm going to enjoy my afternoon snack of Christmas plum pudding. For a printable PDF copy of this recipe with step-by-step photographs, visit my website, mobilehomegourmet.com, and look on the home page or in the recipe archive. It's a little bit spicy from the nutmeg and the cinnamon and everything. That is really... All right, that is really very good. So excuse me.